Today is Friday, November the 20th. It is morning in Los Angeles and it's morning in America. I am your host, KC Phoenix, and this is my morning political thought. All right, I'm going to do just a few side news stories, some that caught my attention. I just ran across a few things and I was like, all right, let me go ahead and cover a few of these because I haven't done some side news stories in a while. And then I'll go ahead and go into my morning political thought. I will probably do three side news stories. So let me go with the first one. The lawmakers are, and this is from the Epoch Times. The lawmakers call for hearings into violence against Trump supporters at Million MAGA March. Let's see, federal lawmakers on November 19th called for an oversight hearing into what happened during a recent pro-President Donald Trump march. The November 14th event in Washington went off smoothly, but as supporters were leaving, they were assaulted by people with ties to Black Lives Matter and Antifa. These supporters were exercising their First Amendment right to peaceably assemble within the District of Columbia. The failure of the city's leaders to afford basic protections to persons who may hold different political viewpoints from their own appears to be another concerning example of viewpoint discrimination in the district. Reps James Comer, representative of Kentucky, Chip Roy, representative of Texas, Jody Heiss, representative of Georgia, wrote to House Oversight Chairwoman Carolyn Maloney, Democrat, New York. The lawmakers said Maloney should convene a hearing, citing video footage that shows several members of the far-left Antifa group surrounding and threatening Trump supporters while stealing from them. A Black Lives Matter activist was also arrested after sucker punching a Trump supporter who had been brawling with others. City leaders have remained silent on the violence. The growing level of violence directed at others simply for holding different views is unacceptable, the representative wrote. It is essential that any group exercising their right to peaceably assemble, no matter their viewpoints, be afforded basic protections against violence. It is also essential that the safety of non-participants as well as property within the district be protected. Although these are basic and fundamental expectations, the city's leaders have repeatedly failed and refused to meet them. Our committee must conduct oversight to determine whether the District of Columbia has a plan to ensure that violence is not tolerated against those who come to our nation's capital in the future to exercise their First Amendment rights. Okay, and there's more to this, but I'm not going to read the rest of it. Look, if you've been following this show, you already know how I feel about hearings. I don't see the point of them. There isn't anything that happens. It's rare that when a hearing happens, we just had hearings with tech companies. Actually, we had two hearings with tech companies within, 2 weeks? 2 or 3 weeks? I'm pretty sure it was 2 weeks. And nothing ever happens. We had hearings on top of hearings in regards to Russia stuff. Nothing ever happens. So I'm just like, if nothing happens, if nothing gets done, why not use that energy towards something else? That's just my personal thought. So that's how I feel about that. Instead of focusing energy on having hearings, it would just be better to use that energy towards something that will actually produce results for the American people. That's my personal opinion. So on that one, let me go ahead and get to the Washington Times. There's two articles and they're very, very short. One is about Biden saying he won't rule out legal action against President Trump, and then the other one's about Rand Paul. So for this one on Biden, it says Biden won't rule out legal action on Trump, presumptive president-elect. I like the way that I see. This is why I appreciate the Washington Times. Most of the time I read them, they say presumptive. Presumptive president-elect Joseph R. Biden said Thursday that he hasn't ruled out legal action to try to force the Trump administration to officially recognize him as the projected winner of the 2020 presidential race. Mr. Biden said he believes the country will be better off if he avoids legal action, but said the option is still on the table. We haven't ruled it out. Mr. Biden said at an event in Wilmington, Delaware. Mr. Biden's comments came hours after Trump's legal team, represented by Rudy Giuliani and Sidney Powell, continued to drive home allegations that the election was stolen from President Trump in a widespread voter fraud scheme orchestrated by bad actors at home and abroad. It also followed news reports that President Trump had invited Michigan election officials to the White House on Friday and called canvassers in the state as part of an ongoing effort to call into question the results of the election. Mr. Biden said President Trump's actions are incredibly irresponsible and send a damaging message to the rest of the world about how the nation's democracy functions. First of all, he can bring all the lawsuits in the world. Nothing will happen at all. Second of all, he's not president-elect. That's why nothing will happen. So the election has not been certified. The media does not certify the elections. Until all the states are certified, until it's a done deal, it's not a wrap. It's not done. So if he were to bring that to court, the courts would be like, what? Okay, let me back that up. Wait. Hold on. Depending on what court he files in, because you know how some judges can be. But if judges were to follow the law, and then it gets appealed and so on and so forth, and it goes to the right people the right judges who follow the law. Based on the law, if it was brought to a judge that follows the law, the judge will say, the elections haven't been certified. So no, the president of the United States does not have to recognize you as president-elect because it's not over. And also the president of the United States has pending lawsuits right now in regards to the votes themselves that were cast. So no, you don't have to be recognized as president-elect. You are the weakest link. Goodbye. That's what it would be. So him saying, oh, well, we're not going to rule it out. Yeah, good luck with that if you decide to go that route. That'll be your money wasted. All right. And then Rand Paul is talking about, he calls the governors drunk on power. Senator Rand Paul on Thursday slammed the governors across the country reinstating lockdowns amid increases in the China Wuhan virus cases, calling the restrictions completely arbitrary and the politicians making them drunk on power. Appearing on Fox Business Network, the Kentucky Republican took aim at the governor of his own state, Democrat Andy Beshear, who said Wednesday he was closing all public and private schools and reinstating a ban of indoor dining. Let's hope in this case the courts will intervene, Rand Paul said, or should I say Senator Paul said. I've been calling my governor for months, DWP, drunk with power, because he's taken the power without any consent from the legislature. He added about the completely arbitrary lockdowns. There is really very little objective science to prove that any of this works. That's my other thing too. And that's all for the article. I told you that they were really, really short. My other thing is everyone's saying, wear the mask, wear the mask, wear the mask, wear the mask. And then because they're saying that masks work. Well, if masks work, why do we need lockdowns? Make it make sense. As a matter of fact, a Danish study with the research on face masks counters the messages of protection. And there's an article on this, but I'm not going to read it because I mentioned this before. Dr. Simone Gold has said the virus is 1,000 times smaller than a strand of hair. Let me repeat that again. The virus is 1,000 times smaller than a strand of hair. She said, wearing a mask to protect yourself from the virus is the equivalent of building a chain link fence to protect yourself from mosquitoes. So make it make sense. And this is common sense now. And that's the thing. If masks work, what's the point of the lockdowns? And then also, when things were happening, people were wearing their masks. This is happening in a lot of mostly Democratic states, like the one I live in, California, in New York, and so on and so forth. And the people have been wearing masks. So if they've been wearing masks, then why have the infection rates been going up if they are actual infection rates? Because now, according to anecdotal stories, the tests that are being used are not always that accurate. So you may or may not know if you have something or not. So things are just all over the place on this. But yeah, these governors, and like in the state here in California, Governor Newsom, he got caught. Not only did he get caught violating his own rules, he got caught violating his own rules with people who are medical advisors. None of them were wearing masks. None of them were wearing masks. And none of them were social distancing. And they were at this fancy French restaurant. You can't make this stuff up. There were pictures. He got caught. So you're telling all these people, oh, you got to wear your mask. You got to socially distance. Don't have anybody with you for Thanksgiving. Don't have too many people. And don't sing too loud. And don't do this and don't do that. But then you're gathering with medical advisors, not socially distanced and not wearing masks. Caught on camera. Make it make sense, because I'm putting 2 and 2 together. I'm getting 5. Something's not adding up. So that's where we're at on this, with all of this craziness. And people are calling it COVID-1984 is what they're calling it now. So those are my short side news stories, but I'm going to go ahead and get to the press conference. All right, you guys know I shoot straight on here. The press conference, honestly, it was too much, in my opinion. Was the information good? Yeah, but and this is the thing. I used to do PR, so I have an idea of how people's minds work. People don't have time for all that. They really don't. And I love Rudy Giuliani. I don't care about his bad dye job, even though I believe I've mentioned before that I wish he would pick a color, because sometimes it's been auburn, other times it's been black, and so on and so forth. He should just go natural gray and own it. Because gray's not bad. I have gray hair. I don't know if you can tell, but I've had gray hair since my mid-30s now, and I'll be 42 in June. So if you have gray hair, just own it. It's not bad. Gray hair isn't a bad thing. If it makes you look older, it's life. We all get old. But if you're in your right mind, that's what counts. I would rather look older and be in my right mind than look younger and not be in my right mind. And that's just me talking personally right now. But I don't care about Rudy's dye job. What I do care about is how he presented the information. He gave too much information. It's what's known as what's called a data dump, where you just throw all this information out. You don't need to do that. Just tell people what they need to know, what happened, and that's it, and then move on. Sidney Powell, she was mostly on point. I would have rather have heard from Joe DeGeneva. Joe DeGeneva is very good. Victoria Tunsing is very good. Those are some heavy hitters. They were standing up there, and they didn't say anything, but they're on the team. And I can tell you, because they've been on Lou Dobbs all the time, and every time that they have talked about things, they have been able to articulate things in a very succinct way where you understand it. There isn't any confusion. It's more, this is the law. This is how it usually works. You can take this to the bank, and that's it. It would have been nice if Joe DeGeneva would have spoke at that press conference yesterday. That's what I wanted. Rudy, I know he's the lead person on this, and he's the lead person because he has the experience. Regardless of how you may feel about Rudy Giuliani, whether you think he's in his prime or not, this man has prosecuted some heavy cases. And not only that, he ran the biggest city in the United States. And well, no, not the world. New York isn't the biggest city in the world. I actually think Seoul may be, if I'm not mistaken, because I think Seoul has like 23 million. But one of the biggest cities in the world, but definitely the biggest city in the United States. He's ran the biggest city in the United States as mayor. So he has a track record. He has an impressive resume. So for those who write Rudy off as just a crazy person, I wouldn't do that. That's not the case at all. Rudy is still in his right mind. As for which you may hear somebody doing lawn work this morning, because in California, obviously, we have the sun year round. But as for Sidney Powell, she was pretty much to the point and explained everything. I just wish the press conference would have been shorter. That's what I wish for. And as for evidence, the press keeps on asking for it. Yes, we're all ready to see the evidence. At the same time, some of us understand that you can't put every single thing out there for people to see, because you have to wait until you get to the courts and then put it out in front of the judge and let the judge make a decision. So that's how that would work. But as for the press conference yesterday, it happened pretty much how we knew it would happen, where people did not take any of the information that was offered and just wrote it off as usual. We'll see what happens. There was a win in Wisconsin yesterday, because in Wisconsin, they were trying to change the way that the audit was done with the counting of the ballots at the last minute by changing the manual. And when they had a vote to do it, the vote ended up being a tie. So because the vote ended up being a tie, they were unable to change the manual at the last minute. So that was a win for President Trump's team. And of course, President Trump had sent over, it was either $2 or $3 million. I believe it was $3 million to start the process of recounting the votes in Wisconsin. So we'll see how that turns out. Everybody knows that he won Wisconsin as well as Michigan and so on and so forth. So we'll see what happens. Georgia, that's just a hot mess. They were finding ballots all over the place in Georgia. To my understanding, they're saying that they've finished the recount and now they're about to certify Georgia, if it hasn't been certified already, for Joe Biden. But I feel another lawsuit is about to pop up. We'll see where that goes. Governor Kemp is missing in action as usual. That goes to show you what garbage people are in Washington. Because if not for President Trump, there would not be a Governor Kemp, and everybody knows that. Everyone knows that, but that's another story for another day. Anyways, that's all I have for my morning political thought this morning. Thank you for supporting the show. I appreciate it. ThePurpleElephantShow.com, main podcasting platform. The Purple Elephant Show on Parler, the free speech platform. The Purple Elephant Show on Instagram. The Purple Elephant Show, YouTube, Daily Motion, of course, BitChute. Shout out to the BitChute community. If you're watching this on BitChute, YouTube, or Daily Motion, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and the notification bell for YouTube, and like and share and all that stuff, because sharing is daring. Thank you again. Until next time, be blessed.